Hi, everyone. You're all far away from there. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming tonight. We're going to get started pretty soon. I'm Emily. I'm a librarian up on the 4th floor in Art, Music, and Recreation. My colleague Julianne's at the back. You'll hear from her in just a minute. Before we start, there are bathrooms on this floor if you go out past the stairs to the left. If you need water, you can eat and drink in here, the one room in the library where you can eat and drink. So go ahead. There will be a Q&A following this. What else do I need to say to you? I guess I'm just going to start with the land acknowledgement. So this is the unceded land of the Ramaytush Ohlone. And I looked a little bit into tattooing practices because there is actually a revival, not just among people who are descendants of Ohlone tribes and part of those tribes, but also actually across California, across the Southwest. I found a really great website that's called CaliforniaIndigenousChinTattooing.com. And there's actually an anthropologist and artist who has been, she is part of she is part of the Ohlone tribe. She's an enrolled member, and she is also going around collecting people's stories about the revival of chin tattoos. So I really recommend checking that out. It is like a living art and practice, and I just want to include that tonight in our celebration and discussion of tattoos. So what else? Hi, welcome. Okay, so let's see. We have a bunch of events coming up. I'm going to try to kind of go with them as they appear on the carousel. Or maybe, yes, good. They are going to appear in the carousel. So first of all, we have an exhibition that's right next door if you haven't seen it. It's really a really gorgeous exhibition that our team put together. I think it's on view until the end of this month, so until March 1st. So it's American Irizume and beyond. It's gorgeous. Please go and check it out either tonight after this program or on a different day. It's great. We have Inked Zodiac, a conversation with Jimmy Shai coming up. Drawing from film. If you're an artist, please come. My favorite program, my baby. Saturday mornings. We have some flyers at the back. And then we have some small business stuff, just in case any of you are involved in creative small business. You're no business too small. We have business advising. We have this upcoming workshop. Again, we have flyers back there. That's on booth display. And then Julianne's going to tell you more about those. So Julianne, come on up. I forgot that we were supposed to swap over. All right. I'm going to bring the mic to you.
Well, thank you, Emily, and thank you everyone for being here. There's a few programs in that carousel that Emily didn't get a chance to talk about. I'll try to remember them from memory. In April, on Saturday, April 18th, we are going to have a product photography workshop. So if you have a small business and you want to learn how to take better photos of your products, please come. It'll be in person. I can't remember the time, but the slide will come back around. And then in May, we have a program Thursday, May 7th, from 5:30 to 7:30 on staying creative while running a business. We're going to have a local creative coach, Felicia Forte, here giving a little talk. And there'll be wine and possibly chocolate and just time to refill your creative well. And that will happen during San Francisco Small Business Week, which is May 4th through 9th. So there'll also be a ton of other small business stuff in May. So if you are an entrepreneur, just keep your eyes peeled. You can also sign up for our newsletter at the back. But with that, so my name is Julianne, and I'm the small business librarian here at the San Francisco Public Library. This building has a small business center. We're located on the 4th floor, and we support entrepreneurs citywide, but really across the Bay Area. There's a lot of our resources that you can tap into virtually too, so you don't just have to come here in person. We're especially committed to supporting creative small businesses, artists, makers, designers, and culture workers whose work shapes the vibrancy of our neighborhoods. So in addition to obviously research and specialized databases and the workshops that we talked to you about, we also provide opportunities for entrepreneurs to meet one-on-one with experienced local business advisors through partnerships with local business consultants. Beyond the walls of the library, we also work directly in commercial corridors. So we do a quarterly small business stroll series where we take a walk in a commercial corridor. We visit 5 to 6 businesses. It's part storytelling, part shopping, tons of fun. We have one coming up in March. There's a flyer at the back. We'll be in the Dog Patch on Saturday, March 14th. Please consider joining us. We will be visiting a tattoo studio. So if you're really into tattoos, you can check out a private tattoo studio in the Dog Patch with us. But now on to tonight's program. So tonight's program sits right at the intersection of art and entrepreneurship. Tattooing is a deeply personal creative practice, but it's also a business. It requires artistic vision, technical skill, branding, client care, financial sustainability, and community building. Our panelists are navigating all of that in thoughtful and powerful ways. We're thrilled that this conversation is presented in connection with our exhibit, which Emily told you about, and it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for the evening, Allison Wyckoff. Allison is an arts and museum professional with over 25 years of experience in curating public engagement across libraries, museums, schools, and alternative settings. In collaboration with the Director of Education, she helped build the Public Programs Department at the Asian Art Museum from the ground up, launching youth and family public programs and founding the museum's paid teen internship program, Art Speak. In collaboration with the City of San Francisco, the Main Library Branch, and the Planning Department, Allison developed the Village Artist Corner, a platform for public art and activation through a series of rotating murals and monthly programs. That initiative continues to seed successful public activation efforts in the area. Allison received her MA in Arts Education through the Inner Arts Center at San Francisco State, where she learned firsthand the power of the arts to raise awareness for issues impacting communities, influence public policy, and spark change. She's the current director of exhibitions here at the San Francisco Public Library, and she creates a platform for artists and creators to share the rich stories of San Francisco Bay Area communities through exhibitions, installations, and programs. And I will say, having worked here for several years, even before Allison was here, she's the exhibits queen. Anytime we have an exhibit opening, there's like 600 to 800 people that show up. It's pretty amazing. She's wonderful. So thank you, Allison. And I'll pass it to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Julianne. Thank you, Emily. Gonna get close to the mic. I'm really honored to share this stage with you all tonight and look forward to getting to know each of you through this conversation. As Emily and Julianne said, this panel is in conjunction with the American Irizumi exhibition, which is across the hall, that positions tattooing as a social practice that builds community and deepens a sense of identity, place, and culture. And all of those things are values that each of our artists, our panelists tonight, bring to their work. When we met to discuss flow and questions, we talked about the precariousness of the Bay Area art scene with the just announced closure of CCA, the recent closure of SFAI, and several galleries, Altman Siegel, Rena Brandstein, Gallery 16, and museums like CJM. But, juxtaposed with those closings, we see this vibrant and thriving art scene, which is nourished by tattoo shops, tattoo artists, and just the practice of tattooing. So there's a lot to explore there. But before we dive in, I'm going to introduce each of our panelists. Inkzaya, aka Mynt Ortega, is a lifelong artist whose love of art stems from watching her mother create fashion illustrations when she was a child in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. Currently, Mynt co-owns Nono Tattoo Collective with 3 other queer tattoo artists. Her prior experience as a tattoo artist and a small business owner helps her bring a certain passion to her work in the studio. Wesley Haack is a California-born and raised transgender artist with a BA in biology and a background in natural history. Wes applies a technical eye to natural aesthetics. He completed his tattoo apprenticeship in 2022 and is a full-time tattoo artist in Oakland. Wes prioritizes physical and emotional safety in his tattoo practice, intentionally creating a safe space for gender variant, neurodivergent, disabled, and other marginalized clients. Faride Bustamante is a vibrant, queer, Salvadorian immigrant artist who currently inhabits and thrives on occupied Ohlone land. As a multimedia creator, Faride's work delves into the complex interplay of identity and mental health. She has been honing her tattooing craft since 2019, emphasizing intentionality and trauma-informed care in every piece she creates. Currently, Faride co-owns Thorns Tattoo in Oakland, alongside 3 talented artists, fostering a community rooted in authenticity, care, and artistic expression. Please help me welcome our panelists. So we want to ask before we get started, how many of you are artists, apprentices, tattooers already, or people interested in the tattoo business in general? Wait, raise your hand. So maybe everyone in the audience if you're here. But it's great to see so many people here. Thank you all for coming. So the artist's journey, getting started in tattooing. What inspired each of you and piqued your interest in tattooing? And what steps did each of you take to learn the art and to build your businesses? And we're just going to start with Wes.
Hello. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm very excited to be here and to be with these lovely other panelists. For me, getting started in tattooing, I never really expected this to be the route that I would take, but I've always been fascinated by body modifications. Throw back to like 2010 Tumblr and seeing my peers get tatted, seeing people on the street get tatted. And I also was really interested in extreme body modifications. There is a person named Fakir Musafar who is problematic in his ways, but is a pioneering body modification person who did extreme corsetry, really extreme piercings. And I was just obsessed with him when I was younger. So having that fascination, I fell into a job at a piercing shop when I was younger. And I worked in the piercing industry just at the front of a shop for a number of years before I realized, oh, I'm good at drawing. There's a future for me in this world in tattooing. And so through a lot of lucky happenstance instances, I ended up with an apprenticeship, which I completed, and here I am.
Thank you. Mynt, what about you?
I'm one of those people who, for as long as I can remember, I have wanted to tattoo. I have memories of when I was a wee child and used to get in trouble with my mother for doodling on myself with Crayola markers. I like to remind her that, she once threatened me when I was a kid that her father, my grandfather, who was a cop at the time, would throw me in prison as a kid. I know. Because only criminals got tattooed. And I like to remind her of that even nowadays as, a successful business owner. But yeah, I've wanted to tattoo for as long as I can. And the funny part is actually my paternal grandfather was the first exposure to tattoos. He was a trucker in the Hovd province of Mongolia, which is west, kind of he had no other tattoos, but I think he had some kind of bird, like a swan, on his hand, so very noticeable, and I would just always kind of notice it when I was a kid. And my interest in tattooing just kind of developed when I immigrated here to the US, had exposure to tattoos in more pop culture, like reading Inked magazine, for example. I wouldn't really recommend that as much now versus like Tattoo Life, which I definitely enjoy more. Yeah, and then it kind of was all like plateaued a little bit until about high school when my teacher suddenly asked me one day, like, have you thought about tattooing after looking at some of my artwork, especially some of the creepier ones? And then, yeah, it kind of caused me to go out and look for apprenticeships at like 18, 19 years old. And I was rejected by pretty much everyone, mostly because a lot of the tattooers I was reaching out to were very young. And in that time, the people who were mostly taking on apprentices were shop owners. It was actually very taboo for artists who were not shop owners or who didn't have like a number of years invested into the industry to take on apprentices. So it was very intimidating for me to approach those people in particular who had a lot of fame or power attached to their name. But yeah, and then fast forward to my late 20s, kind of doing more independent things, administrative positions, etc. I will say, looking back, I kind of made every single professional decision, like just kind of like tilting towards tattooing as much as possible, even if it didn't seem related. I just tried to stay within the artistic as much as possible, whether I like consciously knew it or not. But beyond that, I'm very lucky because one of my friends, Jean Chen, recommended me to the person who turned out to be my mentor, Karen Rose of Sacred Rose Tattoo. And Karen, bless her heart, seemed very impressed with my artwork and business acumen, which kind of goes into the whole like building my whole portfolio as a business person and as an artist throughout my entire life. And she kind of took me on pretty quickly, which I'm really lucky because Karen is definitely one of the first queer women to open a shop in the Bay Area, but also she has a lot of the old kind of standards that we associate with old school tattooing. So in some ways, I had a very traditional apprenticeship. In other ways, I had a very modern one. And all of those things I feel very lucky about. So yeah, and then I stayed there a couple of years. I moved shops, stayed there for a couple of years, and then I met my now business partners, who are 3 other queer women who are amazing in their own right. And we got to talking, getting to know each other, just getting to know like our business values, how we want to evolve in the tattoo industry as it kind of joins the mainstream even more and more. And we realized we have some very similar values and decided to open a shop together and started looking for spots. And now it's been a year at No Tattoo.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I think my interest in tattoos started when I was young. I'm Salvadoran, and growing up, I was told that like there was a lot of messaging about it being taboo, and I was just fascinated. I was like, "What do you mean you get to walk around with like pictures on your skin?" You know. And so, similar to Mint, I like grew up doodling on myself. Like I remember in middle school, in my math notebook, I had like doodles of like my dream scene hair or like what tattoos I would get. You know, just fantasizing about the future. And I think the biggest thing that drew me to just like tattooing felt magical to me because I was like, how is it possible that you get to walk around for the rest of your life with something on your skin? You know, and like I really did not understand the mechanics of it. I really did not understand like how it could be. And I think like after I got my first tattoo, I it cemented this hunger to find out how exactly it worked. And I got really lucky. I'm a self-taught artist. And I grew up in Ohio. over there, the tattoo industry was very like dominated by white cis males. As a immigrant and like Latina woman, like I struggled to picture myself in the industry. But when I moved to California back in 2016, I was very lucky that the Oakland art scene is very welcoming. It's very like I think people really want to see you succeed and do better at your craft. And I met my mentor, Pina Bleep, who co-owns Dollhouse Tattoo in Berkeley, California. Y'all should check them out. They're amazing. But yeah, so at the time, Pina saw something in me that I'm forever grateful for because they changed my life. They thought that my art was great and that I would bring something into the industry that was necessary, which was a lot of caring intention in the tattoo practice. So yeah.
Wes, I want to come back to you for you to answer the second part of that question. So what steps did you take to learn the art and build your business?
Thank you. Yeah. So I think the biggest part for me for like learning about what tattooing is about and what art is about was in part really developing my art practice outside of tattooing, making sure that I had like an identity and that I could translate what I was trying to express into artwork. So that was a big part of it. And a lot of that happened outside the tattoo scene. And in the same way, I also wanted to learn a lot about what could be done with tattooing, what like hadn't been done with tattooing, and where I wanted to go with it. So that meant spending a lot of time around people who did body modification. Like I said earlier, I spent a lot of time around piercers and just generally a lot of time around freaks, like people who wanted to modify their bodies, whether that was for gender expression or just to kind of like express what it feels like to be different or to not fit in and that kind of thing. And I met a lot of really, really interesting freaks that way. And they inspired me to, like breathe life into my own freak. And that just kind of put everything together, a lot of learning, a lot of exploring inside and outside of myself.
Thanks. And I just want to say, so Wes, you're a sole proprietor, business person. Mynt, you are a co-owner of a shop with several other people. And Faride, you are part of a worker-owned collective. So just three different, coming from three different business models and perspectives. So that's really interesting. And what have been some pitfalls and successes? And what do you wish you'd known when you'd started your businesses? I don't know who wants to take this one.
I can go first with the help of my flashcards that I wrote this morning. Okay, so pitfalls, I think, have a lot to do with just my body. I think coming into tattooing so hungry and ready to make it, I was just like 0 to 60 real quick and learned how to tattoo on heavy brass coil machines. And I don't know if everyone here has spent time in a traditional tattoo shop, but those vibrate a lot and they're very heavy. And so for our bodies, they're a bit taxing. And it was probably about 3 months into tattooing when I would just wake up with my hands like stuck like this. So I started wearing a back brace while I tattoo so that, the weight is when I'm hunched over like this, because there's not like a huge selection of ergonomic equipment for tattooing right now. So I just try to use every tool available to me that help me be able to tattoo as long as I can. So back brace. I also sleep in wrist braces sometimes when I do feel like I've been drawing too much or carpal tunnel coming on, etc. And definitely no keeping your contacts in while sleeping because, your eyes and your hands especially are your biggest assets in this business. So my partner over there is laughing because I fall asleep so often with my contacts in on the couch anyway. So successes, I, based on some advice from some guest artists, I have participated in a number of flash days, and I would say those are pretty big successes. And if it's not too forward, I would say a lot of tattoo artists agree with me, because a lot of people who want to get tattooed by you usually want something small and very predictable, very safe. To get from you. And so having a flash sheet or a flash event, especially one that's a fundraiser, benefiting a good cause, is a great way for someone to get like an introduction to you and figure out who you are as an artist and as a person. Some of my other successes are like large projects, of course, getting to really know someone, and then getting to flesh out like a design on somebody as a part of their story over multiple sessions is really just a unique and amazing experience. I have never experienced anything like it in my life. Also, this is a funny success, but I have a couple of clients who, through their stories, have also made me cry a couple times at work. I do definitely try to have that like professional boundary whenever possible and whenever appropriate, but I do also try to connect with my clients as much as possible. And so there were a couple stories that just touched me in a very specific way. And I think it just kind of reminded me why I do this, why I work so hard, why I'm potentially like sacrificing the collagen in my hands and in my joints to be able to do this, something I've been, craving for so long. So things I had known. This is a funny one because I still have conversations with tattooers even nowadays about this. But like when I first started tattooing, I wouldn't take like meal breaks. I wouldn't stop to like use the restroom or like stretch my back or like do yoga or stuff like that. Cause I think especially growing up in a street shop, it felt very like, go, 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 0 to 60, get as much done as you can, because usually we're on hourly as well pay. So we want to do right by our clients. But it also just feels very daunting to be like, hey, I need food or else I'm going to turn into a monster. Let me come back in like 15 minutes. Some of the artists I've met today who have been tattooing even longer than I have, twice as long as I have said like, oh, when I've heard you say that to your client, that was like life-changing for me. So I wish I'd known when I started that it's okay to take your time. You have to take care of yourself and be well-resourced in order to put out your best work when you are physically changing somebody's appearance permanently, supposedly, without the use of laser. This is a subject I'm still navigating, but I am learning to have a lot of grace for especially the older women and the women of color in this industry, because some of the things I've observed while growing up in tattooing is that, in the West, especially here, it's been very much dominated by racist, white, cis guys who like generally enter tattooing at 18 and then don't experience a lot of humbling events, like not like the rest of people do. So I've learned that sometimes when women, especially older white women, swim in those waters for a long time, it tends to permeate no matter how much you try not to have it permeate you, and stay true to yourself and be progressive in this industry. So I think I've been trying really hard to like recognize intent and give a lot of grace when I recognize that they're not perfect or anything like that. And yeah, I think those are the two main things I wish I'd known starting out.
This is my first panel. So I think something that I did not expect, and it hit me hard, I think maybe like 2 or 3 years into my career, was the business aspect of this, like marketing, like how much comes down to you kind of like get the work out that you put in. It can be really challenging to put yourself out there, to be like, hey, look at my work, especially when you're starting out. Like to feel confident and strong about your voice in an industry that is so rich, right, in history and there's so much. It's such a mental game too. Like there's so much of you versus you, like feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome or carrying a lot, and wanting to do your best. I think that now I've come to accept the fact that it's a part of the practice, like facing fears daily, facing imperfection, doing your best, just showing up as best as you can. Like Mint said, I think at the beginning of my career, I really struggled with taking care of my body, and it is such a physical um, craft that you really have to like take care of yourself. But yeah, I think I wish I had known how much of putting myself out there is involved with this. Um, I feel like that's been maybe one of my successes too in helping me find my voice, helping me feel more grounded and self assured, and believing in the work that I put out there. Um, it's incredible to me whenever I see someone out in public and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I have your work," or like, "Hey, today I was at the grocery store and someone stopped me because they were like, did Faride do your tattoo?" It's just the most incredible. Like, it's the honor of my life. So yeah, but it's such an up and down game, right? And so trying to tread through the ups and downs and take care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, all the things. It's just, yeah. Like if you want to get into tattooing, know that it's not easy. It's definitely rewarding. And all you can do is show up and do your very, very best.
Can I just ask, how do you take care of yourself when you're tattooing?
Like while I'm actually physically tattooing, or just
just self-care. What's your self-care? Is it stopping to eat? As
Yeah.
making time for you to nourish yourself?
Right. So I feel like every time I start a tattoo, I do like a little bit of a ritual where I invite people to kind of get grounded with me. So sometimes I'll ask clients if they want to take a deep breath with me, and then it's nice to start from like the same place. I think it's become important for me to tune into my body. I can be a little bit of a pushover, so like I would rather my client be comfortable, and maybe I'm like contorting myself in a weird way tattooing, but I'm trying to like listen when my back is like, hey, that's not feeling very nice, to adjust and take more stretching breaks. But yeah, number one thing I think is staying hydrated, making sure I have enough food in my system. Yeah, just basics, like enough water, enough food, taking a stretching break. And really, I am really grateful that I have the type of clients where like I make so much space for them and their comfort, and they mirror that back to me. So I'm really grateful for that. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yay, self-care. Definitely hard to do. I think a lot of my pitfalls and successes echo what these two have said in two different ways. I think, speaking of white men being humbled, I definitely thought that I was hot shit when I started here. And what I wish I had done, or kind of what a pitfall was for me, is I thought I knew better than everybody else when they were telling me things. And part of that came from the fact that a lot of the people who were telling me things about tattooing were people that I wrote off because they were cis white men. And I was like, there's this whole beautiful queer black and brown tattooing world. I want to be over there. Like, I don't want to listen to what you guys have to say at all. You guys are wrong. These people are right. And I'm not listening. But those were the people who were available to teach me about the practice. And I ignored some of the things that they said. And some of those things were things like taking care of your body, things that are true for all tattooers, taking care of your body, marketing and business strategies, how to be a tattooer during the slow times, how to show up with your clients. Definitely some things that I will leave, like, always have a baseball bat at your tattoo table, and other things I will take with me. So that was that was a pitfall for me, was thinking I was hot shit. I have done my humbling, and that has brought me a lot of successes, which I think the biggest one that I can think of is kind of abstract, which is just I have found and I continue to find my people. Um, it is a pleasure and a gift whenever I can connect with other freaks, and whenever we can make some freaky shit happen with the magic of tattooing. So that feels like a big success to me.
What about self-care?
Ooh. I'm practicing it. Practice being the key word here. It is definitely not perfect. I also schedule a lunch break for myself now. That goes a long way. Slowing down is, I think, the biggest form of self-care and also like relational care that I'm practicing and trying to put a lot of my energy into.
So we've talked about self-care in your business, but how do you balance creativity with running a business?
Yeah, I can start it off. Honestly, I think that tattooing has kind of dwindled down my creativity flame. I feel like it's kind of hard for me to switch from not just thinking tattoos 24/7 and like, I have found that the biggest things that have helped me to keep that going is to go out into the world and get inspired by other people's creations and art. Also, it's very helpful to do different mediums, something that feels like super far away from drawing or something that's like tattooing, like doing more tactile type things, and expanding what I see as creativity. So, like, I think my biggest practice outside of tattooing that has felt like an accessible place of creation has been cooking. And yeah, just finding different realms where I can still tap into that channel where I feel like I'm flowing with creativity and opening myself up to express in different ways. Recently, I found out that body movement is a big way to get that like energy flowing. So like dancing with friends or even just like doing strength training. Yeah, there's a lot of the, for myself at least, like a lot of spirituality that goes into creativity too. So just doing things that make me feel alive, I think, feed that cup, if you will. And yeah. Oh.
I will admit this is one of the arenas I'm still really improving on because it is really easy to get focused on the business aspect of things, like how to be successful as a tattoo artist, that sometimes you can leave behind like the creative parts of yourself. I do find a lot of creativity in others, and as Faride said, like moving your body especially. I also try to have my creativity overlap as much as possible because we do kind of live in a capitalist hellscape, like where, you know, we have to make money or else we die. Try to have that creativity overlap with things that like is an investment into making more money. So sometimes that can look like social media, trying to get creative with it. And especially when collaborating with others, I would say is when I'm most creative, and kind of trying to stick it to the algorithm as much as possible because it does really suck and mess with our lives. But yeah, just being personal and like putting myself out there and building community has been a huge source of creativity for me personally. But I am still navigating, like, especially as a semi-new tattoo shop owner, going in about a year now, it has been a balancing act. So I will keep you guys posted. Stay tuned.
I also sometimes feel like tattooing zaps my creativity. It's a really interesting spot to be put in a place where you're trying to bring someone else's vision to life. So I try to breathe life into my own visions. I do that a lot through spirituality and hiking and like imagination. I was a very like imaginative kid and like imagine fairies in the wilderness, and I still do that. I'll go on a hike and be like, hello, anybody here? So being silly, finding also, yeah, creative practices that aren't tattooing. I love to journal, and that is not something that capitalism can get its greedy little hands on. So that is an important part of how I keep my creativity coming. I'm working on the like blending the creativity and the, I have them very separate right now, personal creativity and tattoo creativity. I love what Mint said about trying to blend those together, because for me, the way that I keep it flowing is by keeping things separate.
So keeping on that thread, what does it mean to be a small business owner today? And what are the values that you bring to your practices? And how do you stay true to your values through your practice?
I can take this one since you guys went first, the last couple. So I am a business of one, which is different than these folks here. And similarly to my creativity, it all comes down to boundaries. I think that my personal values and how they show up in my work and as a business owner, I need to feel firm about things. And so knowing what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, what I can offer and what I cannot offer, helps me show up in a way that I feel true in my values. I feel confident. That confidence is really important. I think a story that I can think of that has to do with this is, there was a period of time where I was like, I do not tattoo cops. I'm not going to tattoo a cop. I am not interested in that energy. And I had an elder tattooer talk to me about it and be like, I do something different, and this is why I do that. Can you tell me why you do that? And I was kind of like, well, cops suck, and I just don't want that energy around. But I hadn't done the work to like really feel confident in why I made that decision. And so hearing this like elder tattooer talk about how, in their experience, a cop coming into a tattoo shop is maybe the only time that that person is stepping outside of their bubble. And it is an opportunity to have them question their beliefs. It is a time where you are in a position of power. There is a power exchange that happens in tattooing. And maybe this is kind of a circuitous story to tell this, but it really did have me questioning what my values were, and being able to receive feedback and go into a conversation about it, helped me reaffirm those boundaries. So I guess what I want to say is, um, in order to show up in my values as a small business owner, where there's a lot of pressure from capitalism, from other people, um, I think feedback is really important. I'm very open to people bringing things to me, um, in order to remain confident in how I'm showing up in those values. So that's more about values than the like business part of small business. But again, it's just me. So this is the thoughts that happen.
No, I think that's absolutely like that. That is your practice, right? Those are values that you hold in your business as a sole proprietor, and something that you want to, you want mirrored back to you, as Faride was saying, right?
Yeah, similarly to Wes, I think it's a huge privilege to be able to have control over your workplace where you are able to assert your personal values. So yeah, similarly, I think I am personally just trying to do my best to call others in versus out. Although, like Wes said, in the tattoo chair, there is like a power differential between yourself as the artist and even like, especially as a shop owner too, versus the client who kind of has to defer to you as the professional to give them the result that they're asking for. So some of it has been really funny. I had a guy once tell me that he didn't believe in abortion right around the time Roe v. Wade was happening. I think I said to him something like, well, you can not believe in it, but it does exist as like a medical procedure or something like that. And then he got very quiet after that. So whereas like in another setting, he definitely seemed like the type who would just like argue with me because he just gave that kind of vibe. Who knows? But yeah, I'm definitely in a stage where I am accepting feedback, trying to be the best member of community that I can be with the power and privileges that I do have. And I'm trying to stay consistent and be very tactical about where my labor goes, especially my emotional labor goes. And a lot of that will look like fundraising flash events, trying to raise awareness and like specifically funds for just like causes that need attention, whether it's Palestine or fighting ICE, whatever. And for me, trying to stay true to my values looks like similar to how when I was looking for an apprenticeship over a decade, I tried to make every single decision I made, especially in a professional field, like at least a little bit towards that goal, even if it wasn't like exactly what I wanted, even if it wasn't a direct path. I tried to take that into factor for every single decision that I was making. And so similar to the changes that I want to see in our communities and in our world, I try to make every single decision, even if it feels really small, because I'm just one person, one shop in, this large giant world. I just try to make those decisions with the best information that I have and control my resources as much as I can. I hope that makes sense.
I was thinking about this recently, how, we're living through really horrendous times. And anytime I show up at work, I feel like here's this little beacon of hope where people come together and people are just very real and raw and honest and open, I think, with the tattooing practice. It's a very spiritual experience. It can be like such an empowering embodiment, autonomy, like practice. And I think, right, like the importance of being a small business during this time is, yeah, you can have say in how you want to run your shop. I'm one of the co-owners of Thorns Tattoo in Oakland, California, and I feel like with my peers, we align in values. We try really hard to be there for community and go beyond just tattooing. Like trying to open the space and have it available for folks. I think a lot of it just comes to just being like an active community member and being open, like as Wes and Mint said, talking to people. Just I feel like so much of it comes down to that, just being open and having conversations. Like there's been times where, not gonna lie, like tattooing can feel like it's really slow and it can get really scary. And it's like, okay, how am I gonna pay my bills? Like balancing making work that I feel really proud about versus just making things that will pay the bills. Like that can be a really challenging thing to navigate during these times. But like I think through it all, just staying open and adaptable. And it does really make a huge difference, I think, to just show up open and honestly. And um, yeah, like, like something that I've tried to remind myself to, and I want folks to know, like if they are interested in going into tattooing, like it is something that, while I think people can find stability in the job, it's a really difficult and challenging thing to achieve. And there's been periods of time where I've gotten like a part-time job or like have done other things outside of tattooing to support myself. And you got to do what you got to do, and sometimes that does help you stay in a place where you can still come at it from like a place of empowerment where you still get a say of like, okay, I know that my bills are going to be taken care of, so now I can like focus on showing up more authentically and making space for the things that I want to do. Yeah.
So, yeah, just along the lines of challenges, how do you manage challenging clients?
I mean, I can start.
Yeah. Yes.
A lot of patience. And yeah, it's really interesting. There's definitely been times where I've experienced, like, I've felt in my body activation of like, whoa, okay, how do I move this? Like, maybe someone wanted to get something that maybe I feel a little bit uncomfortable with, or it's just, it's such a dance, right, between clients and the artists. As an artist, I try really hard to make sure that the process feels really collaborative. I always want my clients to feel like they have autonomy, that they can say, like, I check in with them constantly, like, um, and I think, as I said earlier, like I can be a little bit of a pushover. So I actually am doing more work in order to like honor my boundaries. But just having, it can be a little uncomfortable, but having open and honest conversations, you know, like there was one instance where I felt like I needed to have a little bit more trust for my client in order for us to be able to make the tattoo happen. And naming that, while it felt a little bit uncomfortable, I think was the way to do it. You know, like people don't mean to be like awful or like hard. You know, like I think we all come from different walks of life, and in something such as a tattoo setting where like there are so many variables. Like when I get tattooed, I'm like, wow, you guys paid me for this, because it can be such a like a nerve-wracking experience. And in the moment you're trying to decide something that you'll walk around with for the rest of your life, right? So like as the tattooer, I try to make sure that my clients have a great experience. But yeah, when there's a little bit of like a tug and pull, it can be helpful to just create more space, curiosity, and invite, you know, like lean into it with love rather than like I don't know, face it with the challenging energy. So that's how I do it.
I'm of the belief that most people, most clients are just looking to build trust. It is an extremely daunting experience having another human being changing your appearance and touching you and exchanging energy with you. So when I do have difficulties, it is definitely important to be patient and communicate and just have. And this has definitely been difficult on some days, especially long days that have, you know, kind of melted your brain a little bit, but just trying to have the most compassion possible for the person sitting across from you. However, that does have to be balanced with boundaries. um, Purely from a business perspective, what I personally do recommend is just kind of like writing your policies in a very clear way. And you can even have an abridged version if that's a little too long, but like writing it for your most selective client that you've encountered or the most selective friend that you have or something like that. Because I feel like sometimes when I do work with someone, that makes the process really easy for me. Like someone who wants a cover up, who comes in with a sketch, who makes my job super easy. Like then I can start, you know, giving them a small discount for saving me some time or something like that. So my way of going about it right now is just being very boundaried and also being very clear about like what my labor and my time is worth. Because there can be a lot of gray areas about like what's free and then what's paid versus like drawing time versus tattoo time. And then if you're freehanding in the studio for 4 hours and then actually tattooing later, like what time is charged. So just being very transparent and clear and trying to meet people where they're at, especially in these economic times, will go a really long way in building goodwill and safety and trust. Beyond that, I had a couple notes I wanted to mention. Sorry, could I get a quick count again? How many of you guys are actually in the tattoo industry right now? Could I get a quick show of hands? Okay. Anyone interested in getting into the tattoo industry? Perfect. And just collectors? Interested people? Our loved ones? Okay, so kind of even all around. But this is important for everyone to know as someone who has a relationship with tattoos. Like, as this is a deviation from some of the old school rules. Like, consent forms do need to be signed every single time that you visit a shop. And then something I've learned recently in establishing consent is that, like, getting the drawing initialed after you've stenciled it on a person, so that, like, there's a physical interaction of, like, signing and approving and consenting to a tattoo design, I feel like can go a long way for both parties versus just like a verbal, like, hey, this looks good. Are you sure? Okay. And then let me see. Difficult clients. Other thing that you should probably know in California is anything below $12,500 is small claims court, for which you don't need a lawyer. If you're a business, that threshold is $6,250. So if you're billing for a project above those amounts, be sure to cover all of your bases. And if you're paying above those amounts for a piece from an artist, be sure that you're getting exactly what you want, is my personal advice as a business person.
Thank you.
I think that was well said from both of you. I feel like I've been very lucky and I've only had a handful of difficult clients. I think part of that is because I suck at marketing. And so normally the people who come to me are people in my community or people who know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And there's kind of like a self-selection process that happens that way. So when it has happened, I will say most of the time when I have somebody who's having difficulties, it is a result of a mental health crisis or a misunderstanding or something like that. I don't have a lot of people bringing like angry energy that has no place to go. And so a lot of the things that um, my fellow panelists have also said are very helpful. Spaciousness, openness, compassion really goes a long way. And then boundaries around that. And an ability to say, no, I can't do that. No, I'm not willing to do that. And also a curiosity of, well, and I wonder if there's somebody who would be a better fit, or I wonder if what you're looking for is different than what you're asking for, and really approaching the situation as a human being to another human being, I think goes a long ways. Yeah, that's what's worked for me.
Okay. One last question before we move to Q&A. Is there anything you would like to ask each other?
I'll go first. Faride and Wes, if there is one thing you are hoping that the audience is taking away from this, may I ask what that is? A main message, I suppose.
That I'm cool and tattoos are cool.
What Wes said, but also, I think, yeah, there's a lot that goes into tattooing that meets the eye, right? Like, I think it can, I don't know, like, I mean, I myself, before I got into it, I had this very glorified, like, uh, idea of it, and there is so much that goes into it. Like, this is the thing that makes me feel most alive and has also like destroyed me like day in day out. It's something that it runs so deep, and it's not just about like you versus you and like your own growth and your practice, but like it is a very alive thing that you will just never fully master. And that is one of the beautiful things about it. It's also like co-creation, right? Like in building trust with people. There is so much to learn about yourself. And the thing is that no two tattoo practices are the same. Even if you've had someone mentor you down to like how to hold a machine, like every practice is going to be very different. And so much of how you interact with this medium, how you interact with this magical, powerful energy comes down to like how you yourself, like what you learn about your boundaries, what you want to, like there is so much power, and with power comes great care, right? But yeah, no, it's pretty sick. My biggest thing to to maybe take away from this too is like if you are interested and curious about tattooing, learn how to properly like do a bloodborne pathogens certification course, like, you know, because truthfully anyone could probably go and grab a machine or like a needle and try to make tattoos, but it is so important to learn how to keep like sanitation practices and yeah, also like try to learn about how to just do it properly.
That's so well said. Sorry, I'm going to add one more thing besides being cool. I just want to also echo that because I think that is a really important thing about this is that while our sanitation practices should be very similar to each other, there is no wrong way really to do tattooing, or there's no, I mean, don't take that to its extremes, but everybody has their own individual way to approach this art form. And I hope that if you guys are taking anything home today, it's something that you're curious and excited about to go explore and research or breathe life into in your own practice.
If I may build a little bit on what Faride said, I do also want to add that education looks different to everybody. Apprenticeships are not, you know, cookie cutter education for everybody. Might not agree with you, etc. Personally, I learned like a combination of apprenticeship and YouTube and talking to everyone that I could that came through the shop, etc. So if you are looking to get into tattooing, my advice to you is to be a sponge. Take in everything that you can. Take in everything good that you can from bad people. And be hungry. Don't be afraid to be hungry. Be eager. I think actually when I was hungry and eager, and I still am a little bit, people liked seeing that. They were more willing to talk to me about like safety practice, sanitation, techniques, etc. Some of them would actually like, when I would like go and sit while they were tattooing and having a conversation with consent, of course, from the client, they would sometimes like start narrating what they were doing, which was pivotal to my education. So that is my recommendation to you. And also, I just want to echo the importance of learning about bloodborne pathogens. Like in pop culture, we see a lot of interaction with blood, like people drinking blood and stuff. And my partner's favorite thing to do when I see this and they can see me visibly get the ick is just scream bloodborne pathogens. There is an approved course list on the County of Alameda environmental health body art website. If you go click through the links, there will be like a list of certifications, and I believe you can go into each one and check out their costs. It usually costs like anywhere from $25 to $35, and it takes like an hour or two. But please learn about hepatitis, HIV, etc. Make sure you're doing everything safely so that you're not altering how you're living your life or the people around you for the rest of their lives, other than just getting cool art. Yeah.
Can I add a little bit?
Yeah, please.
I also just want to say one of the best ways to maybe learn a little more about tattooing is getting tattooed. So book a tattoo session, talk to your tattoo artist. I think most of the time they're more open and willing to talk about this. Then, you know, don't be shy. Like if they're having an off day, they'll let you know. But yeah, think of it as like field searching, like you're doing the thing. Yeah, get tattooed.
Okay, so I don't know. Emily and Julianne have the mic.
Yeah, so if you raise your hand, if you have a question, don't be shy. Put your hand up. I'll bring you the mic. Okay.
I have a question on the more technical side of running a business as a tattoo artist. And this might be more specifically for Wes, but I am also interested in what business structure would you suggest for like more independent contractor style artist who doesn't work in a like cooperative shop, but is working from a shop who may want to have more like I guess my question is more like is there some direction that you would recommend in the direction of like LLC, independent contractor status versus another avenue that people take?
Totally. I'm happy to answer that. What I have found to be the easiest and meets all my needs is being a sole proprietor. You don't have to file anything extra. It's just you. You file your taxes as your business. And that has met all my needs. People do LLCs, but the thing I will say about that is when it comes to protecting yourself from litigation, liability, all that kind of thing, there's actually not a ton of protection for like the tattooer separate from the business when you are your own person. So you can make your LLC to kind of mitigate some of that. But in my experience, not having been sued or anything like that for this, sole proprietorship is super easy. If you can talk to an accountant that has tattoo experience, I recommend that. I do pay my taxes. Not every tattoo artist doesn't. Also, if you don't want to be paying your taxes right now, being a tattoo artist is a great way to get away with not paying your taxes. So that's all I'll say.
Yeah, you just have dinner with a lot of people over Zelle and Venmo all the time. Personally, for me, I do have an LLC. I recommend it for people who have assets to protect. It is pretty rare that there is a situation is so dire, like Kat Von D getting sued for using a photo level, like on for us. But I do agree with Wes, like being a sole proprietorship in California, which you can also do as a married couple too. In California, I believe. Yeah, is a lot easier unless you have a shop or have assets you need to protect, or your partner makes a lot of money or has a lot of assets. Yeah. Faride, anything to add?
Sorry, there's so many people looking at me. I'm a senior attending Ruthusau School of the Arts. I'm currently in an architecture and design program working on a capstone project. Thinking about starting my own business, opening up, working on my portfolio to become an apprentice. Literally all the questions I wanted to ask were kind of already said. I have a few more, but do any of you like excuse me, I'm looking through my questions right now. Put like your would put any of your culture or like your identity into your work itself, or and if you do, what kind of like inspires you to kind of do that? Does that question make sense? Okay, perfect. Yeah.
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. Yes. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the panel, I'm Salvadoran, and like tattoos were such taboo in my culture, and I think it's really rad that I get the opportunity to be a tattooer now, and that I bring so much of my culture into my work. And it's like I think thematically, like what I've been leaning more into with a lot of the flash that I create has to do with like my Latin roots, my queerness, wanting to envision a better world. Also, I take a lot of inspiration from even just like textiles or folk art, like things that really just make my heart sing. Not to sound so corny, but like, yeah, like to honor my ancestors, where I've been from, where I'm going to. And it's also equally like whenever I get a client that wants me to help them honor, their ancestry, or yeah, it's really powerful to incorporate that into this. Mhm.
If I could get a little more clarification, are you asking if you should be including more culture stuff into your portfolio when you're applying for apprenticeships, or just in general? Oh, okay, cool. No, I think individuality and cultural identity is exceedingly important. In tattooing, a lot of people have historically recognized as like Japanese identity or American identity, et cetera, or being sailor, et cetera. So we are seeing more and more cultural identity as like more queer POC tattooers enter the field, especially in such a diverse place as the Bay Area. And honestly, if it is a big part of your influence, I highly recommend it, because chances are, if you are any place that you work that doesn't respect that part of you is probably not someplace you want to be, because tattooing is such an intimate practice. Even with your coworkers, there's such an exchange of energy that it is exceedingly important to be selective about who you work with. Like, don't be scared about taking the time to get to know people, to work with them, etc. And yeah, if you are able to take that time, it is really, really recommended.
Yeah, so I've just found a lot of resources about tattooing and illustration at the SF Public Library, and I was just wondering if there were other platforms or websites or archives that you like to check out to find inspiration for your work.
I can share a few things. I love an archive. And we are so lucky to be in the Bay Area where there are a lot of in-person archives to check out. My personal favorite archive in general, it's not available to visit in person, but they have a lot of online resources, is the Body Piercing Archive. It says piercing, but it is a lot of body modifications. Including tattooing and beyond, scarification, some of the more extreme body mods that exist out there. Also, archive.org is just such a place to find anything and everything. So the Body Piercing Archive is a physical place in San Francisco. It is not open to the public because I think if anybody saw the state of it, it would be shut down. But there are a lot of people, particularly in piercing shops, APP piercing shops in the Bay, who work in that archive. So if you're really trying to get in there, it helps to know somebody. So yeah, I hope they open it up one day to the people.
Libraries like this one are a huge, huge resource for us. I personally had the luck of starting in a shop that practically had its own library. Like, she would sign every single book, like Karen Rose. But I found a lot of inspiration because they were very tattoo specific, and some of them were even historical. Like, she had Sailor Jerry books. They weren't particularly pleasant to read in some aspects, but they did similar thing, like take the good, take what's useful to you and leave the rest. I also personally love to use the app Sketchfab, which, if I remember correctly, it is a free app and it is very helpful as a reference for me. I'm not sure if this is a useful one for you, but if you do have an iPad or a computer, you can literally search up like a chrysanthemum, for example, and you can twist it in every single angle so that you can get reference from like the top, the bottom, the side, etc. So it's really helpful for subjects you're not used to drawing. Yeah. That's called Sketchfab. Mhm.
I don't have any like super specific resources. I am someone that is like chronically online. So, scouring the internet. I feel like YouTube has gotten better about that stuff. There's still a lot of like, yeah, like white cishet dudes or just, that are but there I feel like there is a lot more information that's being pushed out. Also like Instagram, sometimes like your favorite artist might be doing like something like this, or like hosting. I've seen a lot of more artists that are like hosting classes or workshops. In terms of like sourcing material information, I think that for myself, just being around art is such a, like maybe I'm not specifically like, okay, I'm inspired by this flower, so I'm gonna like make flower art, but like just going to the art museum and getting inspired, kindling that fire to create, can be a really good resource.
Also, I hope everyone is aware because we are at a library, but personally, I use Hoopla, which is a free app that you can register your library card to. And I believe there's one other one. I don't remember what it's called. Someone will have to remind me. But they do have ebooks where like you can. Thank you so much. It's called Libby, the one I don't use. But you can find like a lot of things. I recommend checking books out earlier in the day because sometimes the libraries can hit limits, but it's great for audiobooks. You can find almost every ebook, depending on your library, etc.
Oh, and if I can just add, I think for myself too, like I get inspired looking at other people's work, but there is such a fine line too of just like getting inspired by someone's work versus copying. Like maybe sometimes you take the time to study, like, wow, the way they did the shading was really cool to me. Like, how can I adapt that to my style? Um, yeah, just a little grain of salt to think about.
As someone who's like building a portfolio and like looking at the industry and seeing self-taught versus apprenticeships and like all the different avenues, um, I guess what is a piece of advice? And I know it's interesting because you were self-taught versus you guys had apprenticeships, and yeah, I don't know if you have any advice there.
I would say that heavily depends on your level of initiative when approaching the industry. If you are pretty self motivated and can keep up with your own education while trying to build and maintain clientele without help from someone that's already in the industry, it is entirely possible, but you do have to have the resources and motivation to be able to put yourself through that. For me personally, while my apprenticeship was not perfect, one of the things I'm really, really grateful for is that my mentor was really pivotal in helping me build like a starting clientele base that resonated with my artwork. And I remember she would like talk me up to her clients, essentially. She would give me some of her clients. Most of them, I think, were people that she just wanted like someone fresh to work with. But yeah, I think it's entirely possible. It's just how much resources you have and how much time you have to put into that. And yeah, the level of initiative you're bringing to the pursuit, if that makes sense.
I want to clarify, I did have an apprenticeship. It was not a traditional apprenticeship. My mentor was a self-taught artist, and basically like what they passed down to me was everything that they learned themselves. I would say that if you are going to take the route of teaching yourself, you're probably going to be your biggest resource in terms of like learning about tattooing. Like I would say tattoo yourself a lot before you move on to trying it on other people, just so like, because honestly it can be really daunting to start tattooing other people, especially if you're like, I'm not exactly sure if I know what I'm doing myself. There's also like, I understand too, maybe not wanting to like fill up your whole body, so there's other things you can do. Like you could tattoo like, I think the first thing I ever tattooed was a pumpkin or like grapefruit. Like if you, yeah, like similar to what Mint said, like it really does depend about like your drive and your need. I am someone that like, while I wanted it so bad, I was so scared to teach myself, because I am the type of person that likes to learn from others. Like I'm a visual learner. I need to have guidance to make sure that I'm doing it properly. Yeah, there are a lot of resources out there.
Yeah, and I'll just add one thing. There's no guarantee with either route, kind of thing. I made the mistake of being like, I did everything right. I got an apprenticeship. Why am I not perfect at this? And I had a lot of unlearning to do from my apprenticeship. So no matter what you do, just like protect that little rock in your heart, that little pebble that's like, I want to be a tattoo artist, because there's going to be things coming at you this way and that, whether that is a mentor who doesn't understand you or who wants to just make money off of you, or if that's your own life getting in the way, if you're self-taught, if the resources that you want aren't available, just protect that little pebble and trust in yourself.
I will also say that like having an apprenticeship is not a shortcut to not having initiative either. You need to have initiative and a desire to succeed and learn the craft and the history in both avenues. It just, from a business perspective, one is slightly easier than the other. And I think it also depends on like your personality type and your work ethic, et cetera, where you're coming from, what your resources are, in order to succeed as a tattoo artist.
Do you have any advice for a tattoo artist who wants to start a collective?
You start.
Okay, so when I joined Thorns, it was already founded. It was co-founded by Rex and Sophia, and then Marin, who is actually here in the room, was the third co-owner, and I was the newest one to join. So a little bit of it was already like some structurally what was already happening when I got in, but I've learned a lot about. It requires so much communication, like so much communication. You really have to identify your values, what your vision is, how you would like to operate. If you have never run a business, I would say talk to people that have a business, like any type of business. Talk to them. You could really learn so much from the people around you and what they're doing. If you've ever been a part of a collective or talk to people that are part of collectives, but yeah, there's a lot of interesting moving pieces. I think that one of the biggest things I've learned is that it's an ever evolving living thing that you kind of adapt and learn as you do it. But it is important to make sure that you're going into it with people that you trust, and if not, that you like are actively building trust with. But yes, it is constant work, very fulfilling, very challenging too.
Okay, I'm gonna be really real with you guys. Being part of a collective is like being part of a polycule, to be honest. It's like being polyamorous. The level of communication required and how much you need to know each other, how much you'll be talking, like when you're in bed, like texting each other, like, oh shit, did I set the alarm? That's kind of what it is. That being said, I do think that my advice would be to be very selective about the people that you're working with, but also try to have a variety of people who like challenge you to exit your comfort zone, teach you things, etc. Because if you're surrounded by people that just think the exact same way that you do. It might not be. You might kind of have like a very limited field of vision, but my main advice is to find people, if anything, are open-minded and willing to change and are willing to listen to you. Because even if they have like things that you don't agree with, as long as you're willing to respect and listen to each other, it will go a really, really long way. And just also try to be a good communicator, know how to effectively communicate, and work with people who also know how to effectively communicate. And it doesn't hurt if they're, business-minded, good artists, etc., the things that matter to you. My last piece of advice is going in, know what your non-negotiables are. So similar to a polycule, like what your what your boundaries are, what are deal breakers for you, and stand by those. And then also respect the same things from your business partners.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I was gonna say it's so important to create systems, and like something that I've learned in my experience is that sometimes we'll just try things out and then check in, like how did that go? Is it working? And definitely playing up your strengths and knowing like what your strengths and weaknesses are. I think it can be helpful when everyone has like a designated role, and yeah, just communication is so key. But yeah, trying to set up systems and then having the boundaries. Good luck.
We can take one more question. Does anyone have one more? Yeah, you sure can.
Yeah, this is going to be really quick. But if you're able to tell me what specific styles you guys would resonate with, or yeah.
For me personally, I like to joke that like a general surgeon, I'm a general artist, and there are things I won't do, like 90s tribal or like, cultural things that are not part of my culture or your culture as my client. But beyond that, it's funny, my clients have said that like, oh, when I look on your shop page, like I can tell what's yours because it's your style. And to be honest, I have no fucking idea what that is.
That's so real. I'm glad that no one asked me what my style is because I don't know how to answer that question. But yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, something that I love about contemporary tattooing is just people are bringing so much of their original work into it, and it's really amazing. Like little me, like the me that started getting tattooed I don't know how many years ago, their mind would be blown thinking about the kinds of work that is like people are doing now. So it's really nice that there is such a variety. Yeah, like of course there is limitations to what you can do, but I love seeing what people are putting out there. And very similar to Mint's answer. Yeah, there are things that I personally won't do, but even if I were to not get it, or like I can still appreciate different forms of it. Mm-hmm.
It's so funny to hear you both say that about your work because I won't be the one to describe it, but I agree with the client that you both have styles, but maybe it's one of one. Maybe it's not the like fall into a big group. I also like to think I'm one of one, but I do more of what I would call illustrative realism. So lots of plants and animals and organic things. Yeah, but also whatever. If you're chill and we're making a freak vision, I'm down.
Thank you.
So I have a few announcements, but before I very briefly talk to you for 1 minute, can we just have another round of applause? Our panelists were fantastic. Allison, thank you. Thank you so much. This is really fantastic. I'm also so glad that it's recorded because I think it's going to be fantastic for anyone who wasn't here, who wants to listen back. No need to make sheepish faces. You all did great. Truly. Okay, so I have several things I wanted to say. First of all, I know that some of you are artists now. I know that some of you have small businesses or are starting them. So I just want to plug again some of the events that we have coming up, whether it's about maintaining your creativity while you're running a business, which was discussed tonight, whether it's product photography because you have a product. We do have newsletter signups. Those are just for our department newsletters. We'll probably promote most of the stuff that's for creative small business in both of them. But if you want to be signed up to one or both of the art, music, and recreation newsletters or the business, science, and technology newsletter, I was about to say small business. It will include small business. Please, or both, please sign up. But also get more temporary tattoos at the back, put them on, take them for later. Take our panelists' business cards and stickers. Take a photo of their Instagram, like follow them, please. And lastly, we have program evaluations which Julianne is holding up like Vanna White at the back. Please fill them out. They're really, really helpful. Positive feedback, negative feedback, your ideas, how you found out about the program. This really, really helps us as we go forward. And we especially need it for this program. I probably shouldn't say that, but please fill out the survey. We have a QR code or we have a paper one. So that's it. Thank you so much for coming. This has been amazing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.